Thorfinn Karlsefni Þórðarson was an Icelandic explorer. Around the year 1010 AD, he followed Leif Eriksson's route to Vinland, in a short-lived attempt to establish a permanent settlement there with his wife Guðríður Víðförla Þorbjarnardóttir and the followers. History. Thorfinn's expeditions are documented in the Greenlanders Saga and Eirik Saga rather, which together are referred to as the Vinland Sagas, but the details are at considerable variance. According to G.R.L., Karlsefni left with 60 men and 5 women, trailing the path taken by Leif and Thorvald Eriksson. Whereas he took 3 ships with 140 men aboard, describing the voyage in greater detail. The finer details notwithstanding, distorts the facts by giving undue credit to Thorfinn. For instance, it denies that Thorvald ever led his own voyage to reach Vinland. In reality, Thorvald had already met his death by Indian arrows in Vinland even before Karlsefni disembarked, but delays Thorvald's death so he can be made to accompany Karlsefni to Vinland, ultimately to suffer a more fantastical death from a shot fired by Unipt. Shifts over to Karlsefni the credit for naming numerous bits of geographic features, from Helgeland and Markland to Keelness, though this flatly contradicts the Greenlanders Saga and is assuredly wrong. Helgeland and Markland were named by Leif. Keelness was where Thorvald had wrecked his ship, and the keel was left to stand as a monument, and not an anonymous shipwreck as puts it. Greenland. Thorfinn Karlsefni met in Greenland Guðríður Þorbjarnardóttir's daughter, the widow of Thorstein Eriksson, and wedded her. She had been staying under the care of her brother-in-law Leif Eriksson at Brattahlid, the estate left to Leif by Eirik the Red, who was dead by this point, having succumbed to an epidemic. California. 1003. Even though has him still alive and playing host to her, Vinland. Thorfinn reached the momentous decision to go to Vinland, which according to G.R.L. happened at the insistence of Guðríður, and Leif agrees to lend the houses he built in Vinland, though unwilling to make a free gift of it. Among the other settlers into Vinland was Freydis, sister or half-sister of Leif Eriksson, who may have accompanied Karlsefni's voyage ahead an expedition of her own that ended in carnage. Guðríður bore Thorfinn a boy in Vinland, who was named Snorra, the first child of European descent known to have been born in the New World and to whom many Icelanders can trace the roots. The exact location of Thorfinn's colony is unknown but is believed to potentially be the excavated Norse camp at Lanzo Meadows, Newfoundland. Nickname. Karlsefni by name signifies makings of a man, according to the preface of Magnus Magnusson and Herman Paulsen, although the Cleesby Vigfusson dictionary glosses it as a thorough man, elaborated elsewhere as a real man, a sterling man. Family background. Thorfinn Karlsefni's father was Thord Horsehead, and his mother was named Thorun. Thord Horsehead was son of Snorra, son of Thord of Dee. Thorfinn was presumably raised at his father's estate called Stad in Reyniness. This estate was located in the Skagafjord Bay area, which is also where Thorfinn's great-grandfather established roots in Hofdastrand. Thorfinn himself also retired in the area in his later years, while says he went to his farm in Reyniness. GIR states he bought new lands at Glormby. A more detailed genealogy is interpolated in the H. Hauksbog text of Hauk Erlingsson. Hauk had particular interest since he himself claimed descent from Thorfinn. However, his ancestral trace before Karlsefni's great-grandfather Thord of Dee deviates from other sources, and the Landnámabók version is deemed more reliably accurate, though not shown in the stemma below. Thorfinn also claims descent from the matriarch Aud the Deep-Minded through Thorgelir. Family tree for further descendants, see under Snorra Karlsefnisson. in modern art. In the early 20th century, Icelandic sculptor Einar Jónsson was commissioned by Joseph Bunford Samuel to create a statue of Thorfinn Karlsefni Þórðarson, a bequest that his wife, Ellen Phillips Samuel, made to the Fairmount Park Art Association. Her bequest specified that the funds were to be used to create a series of sculptures emblematic of the history of America. Thorfinn Karlsefni was installed along Philadelphia's Kelly Drive near the Samuel Memorial and unveiled on November 20, 1920. There is another casting of the statue in Reykjavik, Iceland. In fiction, the protagonist in the manga Vinland Saga is loosely based on Thorfinn and his connection to King Canute and Thorkel at all. Greenlandic Saga. According to Greenlandic Saga, Thorfinn Karlsefni's expedition commenced after his marriage to Guðríður Þorbjarnardóttir. This marriage to Guðríður Þorbjarnardóttir was predicted earlier in the saga by Thorstein Eriksson upon his death. On the expedition to Vinland, Karlsefni brought 60 men, 5 women, and livestock. The fact that women and livestock were brought signified that they planned on being settled in the area for a while. According to the story on the voyage, they ate a beached whale. They also cut timber, harvested grapes, and caught fish and game. Later on in the story, a bull that they brought along frightened the native people. They initially fixed the relationship with the natives by offering milk. The natives got sick and then the battles commenced. Guðríður Þorbjarnardóttir gave birth to Thorfinn Karlsefni's son Snorri before they head back to Greenland. Eirik the Red Saga. Eirik the Red Saga depicts Thorfinn Karlsefni as a successful merchant who came from Renneris Skagafjord in the north of Iceland. Karlsefni embarks on a trading expedition to Greenland with 40 men. They arrive at Brattahlid and are greeted warmly by Eirik. Karlsefni and his men stay with Eirik for a time, and Karlsefni marries Guðríður that winter. The following summer, Karlsefni departs with 3 ships and 140 men in search of Vinland. They come across many different islands but finally stop when 2 slaves return with grapes and wheat, and Karlsefni declares that they have found good land. They spend the winter and struggle to survive. A beached whale washes up near them, but they abandon it when eating the whale makes everyone ill, and Thorkel claims it as a boon from Thor, which offends the Christian members of the expedition. Thorkel takes his crew and heads north in the spring, and is eventually blown off course to Ireland and killed. Karlsefni heads south with his people and find a bountiful area full of wheat, fish, and game. Karlsefni's crew come across natives in hide-covered boats and attempt to communicate with them. The natives leave and the Greenlanders spend the winter there, where the livestock flourish. The following spring, Karlsefni and his crew once again encounter natives, and they trade for a time, until one of the Greenlanders' bulls breaks free and startles the natives, who leave. No sign is seen of them for 3 weeks, but they return and attack the Greenlanders. A skirmish ensues, in which the Greenlanders attempt to flee into the forest. Karlsefni and his men are saved by Freydis, who scares the natives off by slapping her bare breast with a sword taken from one of the fallen Greenlanders. The men decide to return north, as the area is too hostile. Karlsefni searches for Thorkel, but is unable to find him. Karlsefni's men encounter a one-legged creature one morning, who kills Eirik the Red son Thorvald with an arrow. Karlsefni and his crew remain for a time, and Karlsefni's son Snorri is born, but they eventually return to Greenland, where they once again stay with Eirik the Red. The following summer, Karlsefni and Guðríður returned to Karlsefni's farm at Renneres in Iceland. Karlsefni's son Snorri has a daughter named Hallfrid, who becomes the mother of Bishop Thorlak Runolfsson. Snorri also has a son, Thorgeir, who is the father of Ingvild, the mother of Bishop Bran. Karlsefni's other son, Thorbjorn, has a daughter who becomes the mother of Bishop Bjorn.